Hey, welcome to the Business Beauty Network podcast where business meets beauty. I'm your host, Brandy Taylor. Welcome. I'm super excited to have you here. We have an awesome episode in store for you. I've been in this industry for over 16 years, and it is my goal to bring thought provoking conversations from business and beauty professionals to help us grow our business and expand our minds. And as I would say, it's not just lipstick, it's business. So we mixed in a little fun and we drop episodes on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. You can also subscribe to the podcast on Apple, Google, Spotify, anywhere that you listen to your podcast as well. So make sure you check us out there and listen to it and subscribe there. Also, click the bell in YouTube so that you don't miss an upload. You also want to make sure that you check out our podcast on our website at businessbeautynetwork.com. You can email us at hello@businessbeautynetwork.com. We are super excited to have you a part of this community. And here is today's episode. Hey, welcome to the podcast. It's your host, Brandy Taylor. We have an awesome guest today, Susan Bosch. Welcome, Susan.
Hi, Brandy. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being on, Susan. I'm super excited to have you on today and learn more about you and your business. But before we get into that, tell us something about yourself that most people would not know.
My gosh. I am a single mom and I do a lot of the behind the scenes stuff for my businesses. And so I think people think, we have a big team and all that good stuff, but a lot of time, it's like, I don't know, a good 60% me. And so I think probably people don't know that.
Oh, wow. Okay. So is that a good or a bad thing? Because you're not burning yourself out there overworking, are you?
Oh no, I work all the time. I don't know. I really like to work though. I love to create, I'm a creative, hairstylist, and it's awesome to create opportunity for other people. And so, no, that never gets old. I would say customer service gets old.
Oh, okay. I understand.
Tech problems get old. But no, I do have, a couple of people helping me for sure, but it is largely me. And yeah, I think a lot of people think, oh, she had all this. And it's like, no, it's mostly me.
Oh, well, that's interesting. Well, thanks for sharing that, Susan. So tell us your beauty story. Like, how did you get into the industry starting out?
Yeah, so I get in by default. I always liked, in high school doing other people's hair. That was really fun, but I was kind of lost. I didn't know what to do. I went to this prestigious high school where, all of my classmates went to these, Ivy League schools and stuff. And I'm like, I graduated, talking about something else most people don't know, right at the bottom of my class. There's 93 of us. And it wasn't because I wasn't smart. It was, back then. I think these days people nurture a little bit better, but I was just who I am now with no outlet. And so, being forced into school, and then I did take a little bit of college, it was just not for me. But I was raised to think that's your path and that's the only path. And so when I veered off of that path, then things just kind of opened up. And I worked at a restaurant with a lady who she always talked about how fun her school was, and I was just lost trying to find something to do. And I was like, well, what is she doing? She was in cosmetology school. And I was like, oh, I think let me try that. I like hair, and I have zero natural ability, so everything I did in school was, I spent a lot of time watching and learning. And so graduated, assisted, worked in a couple different salons, several different salons, actually, anywhere from a Fantastic Sam's to the #1 salon in the city. So I had a lot of diverse experience. And then I decided to become a salon owner at 25. Only, I know, right? Yeah. No plan really, other than, oh, I have a great idea and I have people that want to work with me. And so that's really how that happened. And I owned a salon for 5 years. We started out commission, but we ended up being hybrid, because I could see even back then the trend was going towards independent and having those options. And so I think I was one of the first hybrid salons, actually, and I didn't even know the name of it, right? I was just like, we need to do everything. We need to do commission and booth rental. So I did that, but ended up selling the salon. And I had listed with the broker, and they don't know much about the salon industry. They don't know where the value is. They don't know how to communicate to other salon owners or hairstylists. So I ended up selling it myself, and went
At
overseas.
25, or were you a
Well,
30
I
at this
was
point?
30 by then.
Yes, but
Right, age of 30.
wow. Excuse me. So wow, that's interesting. I want to kind of dive in and kind of go back a little bit because like you say you were working at a restaurant and you saw somebody that looked like they were having fun, and you're like, well, let me go to beauty school, let me find out what she's doing, and I want to do that too.
Yep.
And that is so interesting how you just stepped out there and did that. And by the time you were 25, you were a salon owner. And I know you've heard like most businesses don't make it to that 5 year mark. So you were in business for 5 years and you just like jumped and went to school, jumped out there and got a salon. Like, share some of that experience. What was that like trying to build and everything?
Build the salon. Oh my gosh. I just, again, I had no idea what I was doing. I got an SBA loan, and we custom built everything. I did it the hard way instead of finding like a salon to buy and then, building out from there. And so writing that business plan was awesome. Very cathartic, right? And you're just getting all your ideas on paper. And I don't know, I really felt like I was just constantly winging it. And I knew I had people coming with me. So I knew that I would have income. Plus, I was behind the chair. I was your typical salon owner working my ass off all the time. And, I had people around me. So that was, it was interesting. So the people that worked for me were my friends.
Oh wow. How did that work
Yeah.
out?
Well, let me see. When I sold my salon, I had out of 10, I had 3 left. And we
Okay.
had taken on, yeah, I mean, it doesn't translate necessarily, right? So people, they'll see you as you're a friend, and then they have a hard time maybe taking direction from you, especially when they're older than you, which a lot of times, I'm going to say almost all of my people were older than me.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really challenging. And there really weren't the resources that are out there today. There weren't people like you. Truthfully, the internet was kind of just getting going, and we had MySpace, I think. That tells you how long ago it was. But the resources were quite limited. And so yeah, I mean, it was a struggle, and it was really a struggle to hire and to find people as well. And I always felt really frustrated that there was no resource for me as an independent salon owner to find other people. There just wasn't. We had a multicultural salon. We had, commission booth runner. We had such a great vibe, right? It was really, we had a real collection of people, but it was hard to find them and communicate to them, who you are and why they should work for you. And so I thought back then, actually years ago, that this is, why am I not able to find people except for from my sales consultant and from schools? This is ridiculous. Why is there no platform for me? So it was wild. And yeah,
That's
I look back, I would have done things a little different, but
yeah, but that's interesting though, and it says a lot about you to jump out there at a young age, and you lasted for 5 years, and then you sold it yourself. So tell me, how did you sell this salon yourself?
well, it was not easy. Actually, I saw a movie about, what was it called? Anyway, so there was a inn owner, like they had a bed and breakfast type of thing, and they wanted to retire or something, and then they put it up. They actually had a contest to win it, and so I did the same thing, and I was in a couple magazines over it, and that we just didn't generate enough. Like, it was what, $500 to enter, and we didn't get enough to make it worthwhile to step away. So then I'd hired the broker, and when that contract was over, I I just went to sell it myself. And I actually had a guy down the street who had bought a building, and it was full of, your shampoos and sets. And he had, I mean, this huge building, right? He wanted a salon full of people, but it was really hard for him to attract younger people because he had all older people. So my salon was perfect. So I sold to him. We all moved to his location. I stayed for 6 months to help with the transition, and then I moved overseas for a while. And it's interesting because this is one of those out of the box experiences. He gave me some money as a down payment, right? And then our agreement was that I would make money based on the people that I brought over. And so I got paid out over 2 years, based
Oh,
on,
wow.
yeah, it was really different, but it really got my mind going about how, it doesn't have to be a standard transaction. There's all kinds of options. I didn't come up with that myself. He did. And I thought that was great because it kept me engaged. Even though I moved, I was still supportive, obviously, of him wanting to keep the people there. So it was a good move on his part, to do that. And it allowed me to go and do other things.
Yeah, and it sounds like that was a great deal and partnership that you had because you stayed for 6 months to help with the transition. Like, who does that?
Not many.
You're right. So when did you so I was reading your bio, like you figured out you were a connector. Like when did you figure out you were the connector? Like how did this all come about?
Honestly, behind the chair, I love to give recommendations, whether it's a plumber or an esthetician or whatever, to my clients. And I would just get really excited when I had a great recommendation for them and they would take action on it and then come back like, you were so right, and who doesn't do that as a hairstylist? I feel like that's sort of the nature of the business, right? It's conversational, yes, it's transactional too, but you're who they're looking to get great advice and they're great hair. And I mean, what hairstylist hasn't done that? But I think I probably got an elevated sense of like, man, I just love doing that. And then I really like to match make couples. I really feel like
Oh,
I kind of,
really?
yeah, I understand what works. I've got 6 couples in my pocket that I have successfully matched. They're still together.
Is
Not
that
even like,
another business, Susan? On the
I know, right? Not even formally, right? It was just like, hey, I've got this single friend and I think you'd like her because of this. And yeah, so it's just all those things sort of culminated. And I really am plagued by the industry issues that we have where I feel like we're pretty much controlled by these big corporations and the opportunities that we see are based on their advertising dollars. And it really irritates me. And I felt like the individual salon owner and the licensed professional needs a better platform. They need representation. And so that's literally how it started. I thought, well, I'll just start giving advice. And I did. And that's really where it all started.
Awesome. So how did this turn into a business? You started off giving advice, connecting people, something you felt comfortable doing behind a chair. But how did this become a business?
I was just thinking about this the other day. How did this all happen? And so my goal was, I live in Kansas City, and my goal, we've got 3 million people here. So it's a larger city. And my goal was, when I first started, I said, I want to be the go-to in Kansas City. And it was pen and paper at that time. But I always kind of thought, how would I grow? How would I transition, this into something larger? So I'll say when I first started out, I would go in and I'd visit with salon owners, I'd get to know them, and then they would just pay me based on success. So they paid me if they hired somebody that I sent. And so that allowed me to create relationships, create trust. They didn't have to pay anything. There was no investment on their part, unless I was successful, which is fine if you have a system to manage that. And I didn't. I didn't have any tech skills or anything when I started. It was just like, I've got this great idea. This is what I'm going to do. And so the whole business aspect of it evolved over time, and adding technology and systemization to, what I do.
Awesome. Now it's interesting because I realized, like, with the pandemic and everything, I know a lot of salon owners, and several of them had to rebuild. They lost like their whole staff. A lot of people didn't return. A lot of people took on other careers or, went to suites. That was a big thing. Everybody wanted to be their own, owner. So everybody was running off to the suites. They had all that extra money that they were giving during the 2020. So, um, I know, I'm pretty sure that has really impacted your business. So kind of share, what do you feel like has been some of the biggest challenges that salon owners has had since, the last 3 years and with everything and all the changes? Because I know a lot of people personally who lost their staff and are still struggling to rebuild.
Yes, and that's quite common. I think it's, the licensed professional now has, we had all that time at home. to really think about what we wanted. And honestly, I think it made a lot of us a bit lazy. I think for me personally, like now I work from home and it's, I'm like, I got to get out of the house today. Oh man, and I think there's a lot of that still kind of, going like, well, what can I do? It's also a mindset shift, right? So stylists no longer felt like I don't want to put in that super long day and give my money to someone else, which is just a mindset shift. And so I think that we kind of went over here, and I think we're kind of coming back to the middle a little bit. As far as being realistic, it's like, well, in order to have that freedom, certain things have to happen. You have to have business, first of all, you have to have retention, you've got to sell some
Right.
retail, regardless of commission or booth rental, makes no difference. It's the same principle. So we've seen, I think too, there's an emergence of, obviously social media is huge for our industry, huge, right? That's how I connect with a lot of people. And I think the owners that are not adapting to this is how people perceive information. This is like the news for them. It is that they look at Google and they look at Instagram and they look at websites, and that to them is fact, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of salon owners don't feel like playing that game, but they're also the ones that are wondering, where are the people?
Right, right. And that's interesting that you say that. Like, what are some ways that you see that they are not playing the game? I know it's probably marketing. I know it's probably showing up because I struggle talking to salon owners all the time about effectively marketing for growth. That's something I teach. So, what are some things that you see?
Oh gosh, one of my biggest pet peeves with salon owners who complain about hiring and have like a Vagaro website, that kind of thing. I see that a lot. Like, it's just not acceptable. You have to come in pretty strong. If you're hiring and you're actively looking to recruit not only new hairstylists or estheticians or massage therapists, if you want new clients too, that's your face, period. And you have to take it seriously. I mean, this stuff, like I see a lot of there's a lot of business site websites, and that is, I mean, your website is the heart of your business. It's your biggest recruiting tool. Makes you visible, from search engine optimization. It's your ability. It's kind of like your calling card, right? Like your great website. I mean, think about if you go to someone's website, if you see kind of a janky, like,
Yeah.
what do you think? It's the
Mhm.
same thing for hairstylists. We are visual people. We need to take you seriously as a salon owner. And if you're not putting forth that effort, you're just going to get left behind. Unfortunately, that's the world we live in.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I agree with that wholeheartedly when it comes to having your own website. I feel like, especially as a salon, sometimes if you're independent stylist and you're in a suite and you use Vagaro or Gloss or something like that, that might work for you. It's just you. But when you have a team, you have to have a website. I see it all the time. I can think of a couple of salons that they use Vagaro and they do not have their own independent website. Even if you're going to use a booking site, because some of those offer a lot of great plugins and they make it easier for them to run their business and everything. But you can embed the booking page, like with Acuity. I know you can, embed the booking onto the website. So that way you can still use Acuity, but you have your site. But just to only depend on Acuity, I don't feel like it's enough, especially if you're an owner. Now, like I said, it's always an exception to the rule. But if you're like a independent stylist, it's just you may can get away with that. But I think even you should have a website as well, because it'll make it easier for people to find you. If they're trying to search you and things like that, it'll make it better for SEO. So overall, I think having a website is very important.
Agreed. And I think even just for the back and forth conversations, your website can do a lot of the work for you if it's set up properly. That's what I have with my businesses. I want my online assets to do as much work as possible for me because it makes my life easier, and any business owner. If you're not clear on there, if you're not sending people to where they need to go, then you're working much harder than you need to.
Yeah, definitely. Now, so tell us some of the services that you provide for a business owner, because I know it's two sides. You work with the owner and the stylist as well. You help with recruiting and all those things. So share like how you provide your services.
Yep. So my main thing is hiring and recruiting. I do call myself an expert, and maybe people disagree, but I really have focused in on exactly what licensed professionals are looking for. And so I offer for owners, it is basically a hiring system. And so that means the ability to clarify and identify what you want and what you need, and have the ability to always receive applicants for us. I feel like, that 30-day job listing, I mean, who isn't hiring past 30 days? Seriously, that's ridiculous. And so we're just not in that. Maybe we'll get back there someday, but generally owners are not filling their spots in 30 days. It takes 60 days, 90 days. Maybe they have 5 spots, and so I think that opening that recruiting funnel to always be open to hiring is really important. And so that is one of the things that we do, is that we provide that ability for owners, because we get, hairstylists and licensed professionals all the time. All the time. They're always signing up, and then we don't have enough salon owners to send them to, and that is a shame. But we're trying to change that. We do really good marketing. I think that's, I don't want to change that. But so yeah, hiring and recruiting is the main focus. I do offer consulting with owners who just aren't sure where to go. I help analyze online assets, because I look at websites, social media, all day, every day. I just have seen thousands of, and I really have a pretty good idea of what works and what doesn't. And I also sell salons. That's becoming a larger piece of the business than I ever anticipated. Yeah, we don't broker businesses. I'm not interested in that. What we do is we provide marketing for businesses that are selling, because that's the main problem. And man, we have such excellent success with that all the time. I've had 6 just in the last couple of weeks.
Wow. And I can tell you that when I think of like where would I go to if I wanted to buy one, I couldn't think off the top of my head. You know what I mean? So there must not be a lot of information out there, because I couldn't think of like where you would go to find out how to get it, and that's something I, would love to know. And that's part of the reason why I wanted to have you on. I think that's phenomenal. But I want to talk about both sides, because you talk a lot about, you help the salon owners and then you also sell them. But let's talk about how you help the owner. And I want to go into the other part as well. What are some ways that you help your clients? Like give us some goodies, like some tips. Like give us 3 ways that you find some of the people that you work with, some of the salon owners struggle with the most, that you help them with.
Well, we send them applicants, number 1. So we help resolve the recruiting issue. Number 2, we give them the ability to really identify what works for them. And this came about because of my personal service. There was a lot of mixed messages, a lot of very unclear offerings. And what that does is it really confuses the applicants, and then there's problems. And so that's number 2. And number 3, we give them that systemized area to hire. So like our owners have applicant after applicant after applicant, and they can organize them. They can take notes on them. They can mark them as hired. Like it's an actual system, which is kind of a strange concept, right? To salon owners, we have the appointment booking, but really, like, who wouldn't want a list of your past applicants? Like maybe, Anna wasn't great 2 years ago, but maybe Anna is great now. Well, now I've got all of her details. And so it's really provides them that frame of reference. And so, yeah, we kind of try to cover all the area, and we market for salon owners too on our social channel.
Now, what advice do you have for a salon owner who's struggling to find and retain, quality talent in today's market?
I would say, first of all, think about what has happened with the people that left. Like really think about it. Why did they leave? It's very easy to go, oh, they all want to go to suites. Okay. That's the biggest cop out, so if that is the case, if that is what you think, everybody wants, so provide suite-like freedom as much as possible in a commission environment or in an open concept booth rental salon. Typically the reason people leave those are, for suites, but there's something going on, right? There's drama, the place is mess, something like that. So I think that's the first thing to identify is think about why the people that have left you, and ask around, ask people, say, I want your honest opinion. Tell me why you left, or tell me why that person left. If there's things I don't know, then find it out. Because that's the hardest part, right? Is like, okay, now I'm going to understand what I've done or what I could have done. And so that's the first place to start, I think, is self-reflection.
Mhm. Do you think there's a lack in maybe leadership skills, or even hiring skills, like, understanding how to scout and hire? And is that something that you help with as well?
Both, yes, I absolutely. And I think leadership is a big part. Um, I think there's a lot of owners that get into salon ownership with no business training, and that's okay. But having that understanding of leadership and what it takes to motivate people versus demotivating them is really, really important. And it can take some time and a lot of, turnover to find that out. And I'm sorry, what was the second thing you asked me?
Um, I forgot to. Let me think. What was it? Oh, yeah, the leadership piece.
Yes.
And then what was that other part? And I will come back to it. It'll come back to
Okay.
it.
All right.
Yeah, but I think that is absolutely great. And just trying to asking questions, trying to figure out, like, how you repel people and all of those. And leadership is a big thing. And why can't I think of the other one? That is so funny, but hey, whatever. We're just gonna roll with it. But I know leadership is a big thing. I feel like that people lack. Oh, and how to recruit the right people. That was the second one. How to recruit. So they don't know exactly how to hire right, how to, find the right people, how to select the right people.
Yeah. And again, that starts with some reflection, right? And that's why we design our software to be what it is. They take an extensive questionnaire when they register. And what that's doing is actually lining out who you are and what you offer. And then you can go from there. And I've had a lot of people say, oh my gosh, I've never even thought about that. I'm like, well, that's an important aspect of hiring, and not just hiring anyone, of course, hiring out of desperation. And I think realizing that recruiting is an ongoing effort. It just is. You're always a day away from, I had a car come through my salon.
Oh, wow.
You don't know what's going to happen. I had a 35-year-old stylist die. You just don't know. You've got to always be talking to people, networking, and having those relationships and taking action instead of complaining. I think that's the biggest thing I see. It's like, man, I can't do this. I can't do that. And it's like, you can't. You actually just have to do something about it. Kind of like, losing weight or whatever. You gotta take action. You gotta keep going and figure out what works and go with that.
Now, over the 5 years that you were a salon owner, like, share some of the biggest lessons that you learned and how you use that to impact the clients that you work with today.
Oh my gosh. I think it's kind of like what I just said, is not identifying who you are and what you offer and really who your ideal hire is. I definitely, 25 years old, hired people that I shouldn't have, because I thought, oh, okay, great. You want to work here? Wonderful. I could use the money. And then problems started. And so I think that's the main thing, is really figuring out core values. Who are you? What do you represent? And what do you want to see reflected in the person that you're bringing on? And ask a lot of questions, ask fun questions, and take your time. Don't react quickly. Don't hire that day. Call them back, do some research, think about it, call the references if that's something that you do.
Yeah, that's some good advice for sure, Susan. So how would someone go about working with you with your program?
Yep. So they can go to our website. I have two. One day there'll be one, but right now it's just a different tech platform. And so honestly, Salon Spa Connection or Enlighten Hire, and they register. So the great thing about Enlighten Hire is they can register for free. Owners can register for free and they get to try it out for free on one applicant. So there's really no reason other than you're not able to identify what works for you to jump on. With Salon Spot Connection, it's more of a pay to list. And so we have more booth rental and more suites on Salon Spot Connection. And so that is how you get a hold of me. We're pretty responsive on social. We did shut down, for the most part, our Enlighten Hire account because we're doing 2 social accounts, and it was just stupid. I'm like, why are we doing this when one's growing so well?
Yeah.
So, yep, IG, Facebook, LinkedIn, I'm all over the place. If you Google my name, a lot of things will come up.
Awesome. I think it's absolutely great what you're doing to help, because I have seen a lot of people who struggle with hiring the right people and finding the right staff. And now, like we said, like with a lot of people jumping ship and not going back to the industry, so it's been a lot of ships and everything. And I know a lot of owners really began to struggle even more. If they were struggling before that, they're definitely struggling now when it comes to hiring and keeping and retaining people. Now, what do you feel about commission versus booth rent? I just want us to get can you share quickly what the differences are and how you feel about them?
Oh, great question. Nobody's ever asked me that, believe it or not. So I think that there's a place for everyone, for sure. And I think that, if you're a stylist, understanding where you fit best, like kind of evaluating, do I like to have all this responsibility? Do I want to do, because booth rental is a lot of work, right? It's a lot more work. Yes, sure, you get that payoff, but I don't have an opinion like which is better, for sure. I think that it just is based on the individual. What I do see is a lot of commission salons are acclimating to the workforce demands. And so they're not, making that stringent schedule anymore, and they're giving them more flexibility. They're charging by the hour. And I think that is the way to go with commission salons if you want to retain people. The days of here's what I don't think is great. I don't think I think non-competes are not great. And that is with a obviously commission salon most of the time. I think that that instills fear in people. And I think that you're then keeping people in your salon who don't want to be there. And that creates more problems than if you're just to let them go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had a friend who, just honestly was trying to make a career move, and had a huge lawsuit because of what she signed at a salon when she opened her own space, and it was a huge thing. And I just thought it was a little sad, because it was like she was just, it was a stepping stone. She worked there for a few years, and now she wants to start her own thing. But some people don't see it that way.
They don't, but that's the nature of the business, and people
Mhm.
will do that, and that will never, ever, ever change. And so, accepting that as a salon owner and preparing yourself for it, having 4 more stylists that are busy and not being, I remember when we left our salon, we went, actually, long story, but I remember that the salon owner was really, really vindictive and would come in and take our cards. And I mean, just dumb stuff, right? And it was just like, what do you think is going to happen here? That we didn't leave because we were unhappy. We left because we didn't like you, because you weren't nice. And that needs to be fixed, or you're going to lose everybody. And it didn't get fixed. And guess what?
Mm-hmm.
No longer in business.
Wow. Yeah, I could see that. Well, it's been awesome chatting with you, Susan. I feel like I could talk with you all day about this types of stuff. But I won't keep you too much longer. But I do want to know, what would you say has been the biggest lesson you've learned on your entrepreneurial journey thus far?
Ooh, the biggest one. Don't go too big too fast. Stay, perfect one thing and move on to the next after you've got it perfected and systemized and you've got everything in place. I'm a big picture person, really, really ambitious. And so I'm always way over here, I'm here, but I'm also out there. And I think that's really difficult. And as creatives, I think a lot of us kind of do that. And so I would say, as an entrepreneur, yeah, just start small and get big from there. And really dream, though, think of all the possibilities, and don't, being an entrepreneur, I'm going to start a support group for entrepreneurs. I
Yeah,
swear.
right.
Oh my
Not for the
gosh.
faint of heart. It's
Oh my gosh. It's
not at
not.
all.
And there's next to zero empathy from people around you. They're sick of hearing about what you're doing. They're not going to appreciate the work that goes into it. Do you ever stop working? You're no fun anymore. That kind of stuff. I'm like, I'm building a damn empire.
Right. It's, I was having coffee with my friend, and, that's one of my close friends, but it was funny because we were just talking, and I guess she just felt like, because, she's not an entrepreneur. And sometimes entrepreneurs don't understand, non-entrepreneurs don't understand us. And she was like, it just seems like you're always busy. You're always doing something. And my life isn't just that exciting. And I'm like, I didn't really feel like my life was just that much more exciting, but I guess, just her listening to what, goes on in a day of my life, it kind of sounds like, wow, mine comes nothing close to that. So I try to like not talk about that stuff too much, with my non-entrepreneur friends, because sometimes it can be like, okay, we've had enough of your business stuff today.
Yes.
Right.
And no one can appreciate the work that goes into what we do. And that is very difficult as a salon owner or as a booth rental professional. It's just, and don't expect that, get that gratification here, and know, okay, I've done a great job. But I think that being an entrepreneur is extremely difficult. And I have a lot of love for entrepreneurs. Seriously, support group.
Right. Well, what do you do? Like, how do you stay positive? And like you told me earlier, you do a lot of it, like 60% of the stuff. So you are a hardworking entrepreneur for sure. Like, how do you balance all of it?
Not very well right now, I would say. It helps that the weather is getting nicer and I can get outside. I actually like to mow my own lawn. I like to take really long walks in the country. Yeah, I mean, I've got a handful of friends, I've got family, and then of course the kids. We're always doing fun stuff and hanging out with friends. And so that is, I would say that's probably my biggest time that I'll disconnect is with the kids. It's like they need my attention, they need my love. Let's cook some dinner, let's ride bikes, that kind of stuff. So that's how I achieve balance, is really through them. Now, as they get older and they don't care about having their mom around, I mean, it's gonna happen, right? Someday.
Right, right. You know how it goes.
Yep.
So where do you go for motivation? Is there a book? Is there a favorite quote, a mantra? Like, how do you stay motivated as a busy mom and entrepreneur and everything you do?
I love documentaries and I love listening to books. I like listening to podcasts about other entrepreneurs' journeys. I find that very motivating and I love to hear the different stories. I'm just finishing a book now where this guy details all sorts of different startups, and he talks about Tinder and talks about Uber. And I mean, it's just fascinating to me. And that's very motivating. And you get these little pieces from all of these different stories, that you can implement into your own business. And I listen to really high energy dance music. That's something nobody knows about me.
Hey, I love that, right?
All the time.
I'm from Detroit, so we have the mix here. So I used to listen to that. Not so much anymore.
My daughter's like, turn it down. I'm like, no.
Hey, I love that. I love that. And I want to know this book. Do you know the name of it? If not, send it to me because that sounds awesome.
I will. It's called Cold Start Problem.
Oh, okay. Cold start problem. Okay, I'll leave that in the show notes because that sounds like something I like, because we have something in common. I love hearing the story. I remember that was one of the things I liked about the book Think and Grow Rich, because he told a lot of the startup stories and how people started their businesses. But I love, that's a part of the reason why I do the podcast as well. I love hearing how people, started their stories, because a lot of times people can hear themselves and somebody on the podcast, and like it might be somebody who's 25 and like, I want to open a salon, you know. And I mean, I think it worked for you. You did it for 5 years and you're still in the industry helping the beauty industry. So I think it was a path you were supposed to take, even though you were so young and it may have seemed like, wow, at that time. But sometimes that's how it starts. You just jump out there and, figure it out as you go.
And all these bad experiences, people are so adverse to having bad experiences, but that's like couples in your bucket of experience, right? You're building all of that and you grow from every single great experience and every single negative experience. And so, being afraid to get yourself out there and start something won't teach you anything.
Yes. Well, Susan, Vash, everybody. Susan, give your websites and everything one more time.
Go to enlightenedhire.com or salonspaconnection.com.
Awesome. I will have all of that in the show notes. Make sure you connect with her. As always, stay great, and we're out. Bye.
Thanks.